So then you've got like these sparse, moody bass lines. You've got Ian's like dark, poetic lyrics. And it clearly becomes a much different thing than any of the punk bands at the time.
Exactly. So of course they start to kind of like rise to the top because they become the cream because they've got like a different angle, you know, to things, which is very interesting. It's kind of how much pain Ian Curtis is in because he suffered from epilepsy. And that kind of translated in his poeticism. I'm just paralleling that. I have another favorite rapper whose name is Prodigy, and he suffered from sickle cell. And he said because of the pain he physically felt, he was able to put it like on a pen and like really be so descriptive because a lot of that stuff was happening to him. So I wonder, you know, if Ian's like along the same lines, you know?
I do think it became like that because I don't think when they started Joy Division, I don't think that he knew he had epilepsy yet.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, and because of, you know, these things can exacerbate little diseases or small things that you have, you know, you touring for hours and hours and hours, not sleeping, not eating properly. You know what I'm saying? I am a sensitive person. Okay. I need certain meals, right? Or else I just blow up.
My body needs certain things or else it doesn't want to cooperate.
Does not want to cooperate. Yeah. You know, so, you know, I gotta say, you know, stan culture working like that all the time. I don't think it's healthy for the individual. People were screaming at this young artist the other day named Doja Cat because she didn't come downstairs in the middle of like a tornado to say hi to her fans, and then this other guy was like, Michael Jackson would never ignore his fans, and I'm like, Michael died exhausted at 50.
Yeah.
50 is young.
Yeah.
You know, so
100%.
yeah, he didn't know he had epilepsy. Yeah, and it starts to get exacerbated. But you know, but back to the music.
It's really hard to explain how different the Joy Division was from just the regular punk music. Because not only was the music so different, but also just Ian's front manish
movements.
Yeah. It was just so different. Like, he wasn't trying to be like, what's up, everybody? How you feeling tonight? Like, he was not doing any of that shit.
Yeah.
He just literally, like, you could see it in his eyes that he just completely lost himself to the music. Like, he just shut his conscious brain off, and his body just became a conduit for the music.
Yeah.
And he started doing these like, dances.
Yeah.
That, like, nobody would ever think to do, because it doesn't really look cool. Let's be real.
No.
Like, it's not a cool looking thing to do, but that's just him. And he owned who he was.
Yeah.
And that's why people were drawn to him. Because he wasn't trying to be anybody else. They were just trying to be Joy Division, and he was just trying to be Ian Curtis.
Yeah.
And that's, again, something we always talk about on this podcast. Like, authenticity is always the thing that wins out in the long run.
Yeah.
And that was authentically who he was.
Yeah.
So him being who he was, you know, the music listening or watching public was like, I've never seen anything like this before.
Never.
Like, not even close.
Right? Like, I don't know. Is this guy going to sing to me? Is he going to hit me? Like, is he going to attack me? Because, you know, like you said, he's a big guy with a big stare, with a big glare, and, like, you know, in a very, very deep voice, and so perceptive. So it's just like, you don't know what to think. But I'd be moving just like him.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, is that he does have that really deep voice, which also separates him from, especially you think of, like, we're talking about the Sex Pistols, we're talking about Johnny Rotten, he's got that high, like, anarchy, blah, blah, blah. But Ian's like,
exactly.
Like, he's all, like, his whole style is so different.
Yeah.
But and that also might have to do with some of the Jim Morrison influence.
That's true. Yeah. I didn't even think about that. But yeah.
This is the end. Boom, boom, boom. Beautiful friend. So now they got to record an album. And Tony is like, I got this producer that's going to do great shit for your music. This guy, Martin Hannett, right?
Yep.
And he really was a groundbreaking producer.
Yes.
Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, he really changed their sound.
Yeah.
Which was a good thing and a bad thing, right? Because, again, their shows were very much faster, like, more punk energy.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what the band wanted the album to be.
Right.
But Martin was basically like, hey, I got all these like recording techniques and things that I'm trying to use out. Y'all are basically going to be my like guinea pigs.
Guinea pigs, yes, yes.
Right? So he starts doing all these shit, like all this crazy things. Like he's recording just like air canisters spraying, and he's making you record drums on the roof because it sounds different. And he's putting all this reverb and effects on all the vocals and all this that like they didn't do before.
Exactly.
And it completely changed the sound. And it is what makes the Joy Division sound so distinctive on the recordings.
Yes.
But also at the time, they were like, the band members were like, what the fuck, dude? This isn't what we're trying to do. What is this shit? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Which I think is so interesting.
It is. It really is. But I mean, and he did well. Like, I mean, those drums stand out so much. I wanted to know. I remember listening to those drums and I'm like, are they using a drum pad? What exactly do they do to make it sound like that? Why does it sound like they're in a wall of space? And then we know why does it sound like they're banging against the wall?
Yeah.
Why is the bass so far away but so close at the same time? Like, I ask those things as a young listener, you know, so you imagine, you know, what a seasoned listener or somebody who's like really attuned to music, like as a profession, you know, other producers in the game, they're probably like, whoa, what the fuck? Like,
it must have been just absolutely groundbreaking to hear that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And like, yeah, so the sound is just completely different than what their live shows were. And another really interesting thing is, you know, when you're in a band and you're playing live, you don't always hear everything.
Right.
Right? Mm-hmm. So this actually happened with us when we were playing music. So, like, I remember there was a time where we were playing a song live for like a year, and then we actually sit down to record it. And I'm like, oh shit, this is what you've been saying this whole time?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because when you're playing live, like it's loud, like you're into what you're doing,
right.
You're not focused on everything.
Right.
So now it gets to the time like they have to go into the studio and they're actually like hearing Ian's lyrics and they're like, oh, this is like kind of fucked up because they didn't really necessarily even know what he was saying.
Right.
They just knew that it sounded good.
Yeah.
So now they're actually recording it and they're just like, whoa, dude, like it's pretty. Are you okay? You know what I mean?
He's like, no.
Nah.
Haven't you noticed I'm suffering?
Yeah. So. But
that, like, dude, sorry.
Like, sucks to suck, dude. But so they record the album. It's called Unknown Pleasures. It looks like this, and it's just a great album.
Yeah,
it still sounds new.
Yeah,
honestly. And the thing with like the production, like he kind of took it from sounding like just a punk album to like it kind of sounds like post-apocalyptic disco.
Right? Definitely post-apocalyptic-ish. Yeah, because I see that. I see kind of like a bombed out shelter where people are playing music.
But they're dancing.
Yes, they're having a good time.
Right.
But it's bombed out and depleted.
Depleted. Yeah, and I don't know, it's just such a good album. Like, if you haven't heard this album, like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it almost upsets me sometimes because it's like this album, you know, you download all your Joy Division and there's an ending point. You know what I mean? There's a cutoff point because like he's not here anymore. And I'm like, there's no more music like this.
No.
There's no more.
No.
Like, it's really, really, it can be upsetting sometimes because, you know, especially when you skip and then you go years and years into your journey with Joy Division and all of a sudden it's just like more than 10 years and it's just like, shit.
You're like, there's still nothing like
this.
There's
no more. Like, fuck.
Yeah, it is really crazy. To this day, like, there's still nothing really like Joy Division. Like, they still really are just completely unique in their place in music.
Yeah.
But, you know, I always think about that too, and it's like, I always choose to look at it as like, you can be upset that there's only so much, but I would rather be happy that it exists at all.
Yeah.
Because it didn't have to.
That's true.
I mean, what if Ian just never saw their newspaper article?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's
We could have just never had Joy Division at all.
That's true. I hear you. And you know what? I choose to be happy.
Yeah. Yeah. Happiness. Side After Dark, a.k.a. SAD. We endorse happiness.